Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Love It or Shove It. And we are back in the studio. It's Irina Portnova with my co-host Bruno Gill, and we have the guest, amazing Jillian. Jillian, welcome to our show, and please tell a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in this beautiful world.
What am I doing in this? Well, I've already raised 4 kids, so now I am
Mm.
shuffling into owning my own life. And I have been a functional nutritionist for years now, a registered orthomolecular health practitioner. And I work with women through the fat burning pathways. Now, I know that sounds like just a weight loss thing, but it builds that confidence. It builds that life of enjoyment. It builds that body positivity. And along with that comes our libido, which
Mm.
nobody really loves to talk about, but everyone wants a decent libido and wants to enjoy their love life, their intimacy, their partners, and all of that. So, I mean, I love this stuff. And
Absolutely.
you guys understand that whole like there is that manifestation for that partner. There is that connection, that trust, and all of that. But I come from the background of, okay, what are the hormones doing? How are they interacting with other hormones? And how can we boost that with foods and lifestyle?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. And it's good because, like I'm sure whoever is going to tune in, this is the right information that they meant to hear, right? So, talk a little bit about libido, like and like how does it change with the age, or what other factors are influencing it?
There's a lot of factors that influence your libido. Um, and a lot of it starts with our thoughts. It starts with our mental health. It starts with our energy. It starts with who you think you are. Because if you put this box around you that, sex is only something for this, we only do it at night, or we only do it in the morning, or I have to have love, or whatever it is that we've been brought up with to have sex and a good libido, you already have shut down a lot. Like I know a lot of women are actually more erotic than men, but men have such a strong arousal that women can just be overburdened by a horny man, and they don't actually get to enjoy their own desires when it comes to sex and libido. So there's a lot of communication that needs to happen for this to go. And it's because somebody in that relationship is going to initiate this, and they don't have an outcome. They have no idea if they're going to be shut down. They have no idea if it's a go, and that's fear driven.
Mm.
And we're also talking about if there's inflammation, it's going to affect the hormones that create arousal. If we have a hormone dysfunction, we're not getting the right messages to the right cells in order to say we're aroused, we want this. We don't have enough energy. And that could be blood sugar disorders, dysfunctions. It could be cardiovascular dysfunctions. All of these things are affecting our libido and the way our body wants to go out there and enjoy this passionate event. We're also looking at chronic conditions. That's going to put a lid on any sort of libido. So there's so much that goes on in the body for someone to have that libido that is thriving. As we get older, our libido goes down. And sometimes just for women, it's because we've had so much responsibility with all the things. And then we can see like there's no time, there's no opportunity. And for women, it's not wham, bam, thank you, ma'am for us. We need that touch. We need that anticipation. Like, and if you're not going to get the Outlander type of romantic experience, then are you even willing to put yourself out there? So when it
That's
comes,
beautiful.
yeah. So when, like, I mean, I don't want to say it's and men can get aroused just from pictures and porn and things, but women need a whole lot more. There's a lot more going on in their brain than, yes, that sounds exciting.
Awesome. Bruno, does anything come for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come from me. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, I think like women. I believe women are a little bit more complex when it comes what drives what. I think women are a little bit more complex to what sexually drives them way more than men, right? Because they're more detailed, they're a little bit more like open minded to the things they want to do, to how they want to say. Maybe they want to dress up, maybe they don't want to dress up, maybe they flirt a little bit by the phone because before they um, and so men are very simple. Like usually men are the ones who follow their lead when those things happen. Because now, um, in my own personal view, um, it's one of those things where I figure that especially for women, it's like Jillian was saying, right? Like it's like the better you feel, the more you're gonna be sexually driven, right? Um, because you like it's like the better you feel, the more pleasure you get from it, and so that pleasure can also be sexual, right?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, there's this sexual drive that a lot of people do have, and when we talk about sexual energy, we talk about creative energy because in that sexual energy we have the curiosity and we have the excitement, right? And like in the creative energy, that's what happens when you're creative, right? Um, but right, and just like you can create life, you can create your own life as well with your thoughts when you curate that drive. But it's your choice to really know what to do with it, right? And that's one thing. Then number two, the thing I believe about women is that once they experience a certain type of man, they are not really willing to downgrade themselves to be with a man now who they don't see as valuable and they don't respect as much as the man they were with before, right? Um, because now that they have experienced that those type of men, now they want another one. They don't want to give it up, right? And whatever they do to get it, that's their goal. No matter what it looks like, no matter how it feels, no matter what is said, done, shown, felt, thought about, all they do is to get that out, right? And yeah, and I think that because there are women who will ultimately decide to stay alone. They will ultimately decide to, be like, no, I don't want to be with any other man. The one that I wanted is gone, and if I'm gonna get anybody, I'm gonna get somebody who's like you, or I'm gonna get somebody, like who either has the same type of lifestyle, or somebody who can love me the same way, or you know, um, I figure that a lot of women, yeah, it's like their drive gets punished by wanting to cope with a lifestyle that they don't really agree with in the first place because they're not excited or curious to be with that person. They're using
I
that person as a coping mechanism, right?
I love that. I love that because that brings in the neurotransmitter dopamine. And that is one of the first neurotransmitter that gets excited and happens in the brain for a reward. So when we want that arise, and you're talking about how women, it's that creativeness on how they want to develop their life. Well, dopamine is part of that creative process. And we also know that dopamine, if a woman has been, I don't want to say refused, but is aroused and then denied that type of release, her dopamine goes down. It doesn't respond the same way over and over and over again. So that all of a sudden we have this dopamine response that is supposedly, I mean, dopamine is absolutely amazing as it is the mediator between a lot of great things.
Can I
Yeah.
just interrupt you there for a second?
Yeah.
I want you, if you could do us that favor, I want you to explain the difference between dopamine and serotonin to the audience, because me and Irina, we know the difference, but I bet the people who are watching this don't. So
Okay.
if you could explain the difference between dopamine and serotonin.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
for sure. So dopamine is an excitatory hormone. So that's what, when we're talking about arousal, we're talking about desire, that's the first thing. It's like the Christmas present under the tree. I want to know what's in there. I'm going to go for it. That's that dopamine. This is the thing that gives us the creativeness to go and create goals, to look for new ones. And it's really associated with pleasure and satisfaction, especially when we're talking about this sexual experience. Then we have the serotonin, and it's actually an inhibitory type. It is a neurotransmitter. Some people believe that it is a hormone as well. It's made in the gut. And this is more about our moods, our digestion, our learning, and our memory. And I mean, it is a feel-good type hormone neurotransmitter. So you're going to have this excitatory type reaction, biochemical reaction that includes your dopamine, norepinephrine, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And then after that sexual experience, you're going to feel really good. And that's where we see that serotonin coming in. We see prolactin. We want to have that reduced. And we also have the endocannabinoid system, which gives us that sense of opioid pleasure after. So it really is a mix. Does that make sense? Did I answer that question well, Bruno?
right, absolutely correct. No, I completely agree.
Yeah, so we need our whole bodies from that, and hormones and neurotransmitters are very, very sensitive to how we're feeling, and all the things that happen inside. So we need to have that dopamine. We need to see women that are not, I mean, dopamine is going to drop if you're sexually frustrated. Norepinephrine, that is a stress hormone, but it's also very exciting. So it gives you that pop of energy when it comes to that arousal. Testosterone, this is something, and women don't make the same amount like men. We don't have this burst of testosterone. So 25% of our testosterone is made in our ovaries, and that's going to end come menopause. And it makes sense that, we see that drop in that sexual desire then. And then 25% is made in our adrenal glands, and 50% is in our peripheral tissues. So if you have any sort of inflammation or inflammatory condition, your peripheral tissues are not making what it needs to have that strong desire. And when I had a client who went through menopause, I want to say really early, about 35 years old. And that's young to have your libido drop. Her spouse was about the same age. There was a lot of tension in their relationship. She gained the weight. She felt crappy, the hot flashes. Like her body was going through something that an old woman would go through. And that's how she was feeling. Now, when we started working together, libido is always the last person people like, hey, and oh, by the way, my libido is like totally off. They've got extra weight. They feel horrible. They're not sure if they even want to stay with their spouse because of this. And working through the way we work through it, and I work through the stress triggers first. So important not to continually trigger yourself. And then we did all the cleanup. We did all of that. And all of a sudden, her life changed. And she doesn't say, hey, my sex life is amazing. It's 3 times a day now. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm really confident in my relationship. I feel great naked. And even though, I don't know how it perceived if we could talk about sex and our libido that easy. Like, hey, look, the sex was great today. Thanks, hon. Like, how do we do that? How do we get around this type of conversation, which is so, so important for relationships? Like, does your partner know what's going on at all? And they're just feeling like they're being dismissed. But your estrogen is high, your progesterone is low, you feel like crap. Maybe there's a little incontinence that you're worried about. All of these things can be healed, can be balanced out so that you can get back on that saddle and enjoy your life if you want to. Even up until you're 75, 50% of women at that age say that, their arousal is low. But then there's 50% of other women that are loving their sex life at that age. So when it comes to that kind of communication, Irina, and that you work with a manifestation, how do you manifest a really good sex life?
Well, first of all, it's a great question, but it starts from knowing yourself, right? Because if you do not know yourself, if you do not know what what keeps you going, right? You cannot be able to convey this to somebody else, because a lot of times people are waiting, especially women, waiting for the man to figure out. Because when it comes to the sex life, men are more open, the majority, statistically speaking, they are more open than women. And a lot of women expect men to know what to do in order to please them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, you have to know yourself well in order to show your partner what you like and what you do not like, right? So that's where it starts from. And then I think big piece is communication, to be open, like you mentioned, Jillian, right? To be able to open up and just be honest and say, hey, it's not just like you mentioned, right? It's not just you took, like you got off and I'm like laying there without any feelings, right? So be open and be just straightforward and say, hey, like this is something that doesn't work for me. And then I believe it's very important to have that emotional connection, because it's one thing, okay, maybe communication is not bad, maybe physical closeness is not bad, but when there is not emotional connection involved, it also can hurt. Because I think women more looking for that emotional connection. Obviously there are men who are more sensual and sensitive, but majority, it's for women, is even more important than for the men, right? So I would look into these areas. And then obviously when you feel confident about yourself, because again, to be able to express your desires, to be able to feel comfortable to be naked, and all other things, right, that come with that.
Exactly. Think about your stress level when you feel that way. You're just
Hmm.
good. You're good.
Right.
So I know that women, and the women I've talked to and have coached through this, they don't initiate sex. They actually feel irritated when their partner is initiating it because it's not at the right time for them, and they do lack that kind of bonding feeling. And then a lot of women say, "Yeah, I'm lacking the intimacy. Like I feel like that's a problem in my relationship." And as women, and I know that I've talked to Bruno before, women are the givers. And then when we're seeing this type of dysfunction in this intimacy part of it, we need to give something in order for it to be fixed. And then when we're not feeling that drive, that plummets our self-confidence, and it increases our stress, which in turn are messing up our hormones, which naturally would be like balancing out that sex drive. you don't feel sexy, they don't want to be touched, then I don't want women out there to, throw out their partner just because all of this seems to be such a big mess, or it's just not spicy enough for them, right? Like you get to an
Mm-hmm.
age and you're like, well, I've done that before. And we've done that for 10 years. What comes next? What comes next?
I figured, like I was I was thinking, I was listening, but I was also thinking, and I was thinking about. So Irina said, statistically, men are more open and communicative than women about sex, or they will most likely start it, right? But I figured that's because, Jillian, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that women are naturally more drawn to chase than a man is, according to DNA. So I believe that when a man does chase a woman, is a very good way for a woman to know that the man really wants her. Now, I feel like, one of the most primal behaviors that has always existed, right? I think the most primal behavior that has always existed is the reproduction one, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, I feel like it's the most important one, right? So we have thousands of years of genetic behavior in our DNA. How all our ancestors have done things, right? So majority of women wanting it and women going for it is like it was with cavemen, like it was on Iron Age, Information Age, Emerald Age, like, right, which is, there's that we are kind of now. Um, all ages, right? Um, yeah, so Stone Age, right? So that's something that comes from way, 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 because women like when they're assured, when they're taken, when they're grabbed. Obviously,
When they're
when better.
safe, right?
It makes them
Mm-hmm.
feel safe. It makes them feel wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
because
women in their primal, they stuck on no. I mean, I'm just gonna receive. That's it. Like you want me, you come get me. I'm just here. I'm ready to receive, and that's it, right? And they get stuck in that one, right? But I also believe that there are a lot of women who would love to start certain things, right? And then it's not so much about them naturally wanting to receive. It's about them using the excuse of I'm supposed to receive because I'm afraid of actually going and start things, right? So they don't really want to receive anymore, but they will use it as an excuse to not really go there in the first place. It's two different things, right?
hmm
So yeah, that's kind of what kind of came to me.
wow, that's a bucket of worms right there. Like I feel that myself, I'm more of an aggressive female. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, but if I want something, I go get
Right.
it. And I guess that's where my confidence lays. Like I know that if I want this, I can take the actions for it and I can create the environment that it'll happen. Um, I know that when we're talking about the whole female thing, I never would want anyone to feel like a piece of meat. You know, I want to have that relationship. I want women to have that relationship and know that it's strong. It doesn't have to, like, sexual desire and libido does not mean it's only for your partner. It's you can have that kind of libido for others, and whether you act on it or not is something totally different. But it comes down to, like, do you have the passion? Do you want this? As I was
Mm-hmm.
saying, have you manifested and created this relationship where, like, the desire you have creates beautiful things and beautiful moments, and you're closer because we all have vibrations and energy, and we can be on a different plane. But when it comes to sex, we can meet there.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that we're a good match for each other, but some relationships, they can thrive off just meeting there and having their life, like individual lives. A lot of women were, I don't want to say forced, but there's a lot of women that get married in order to check a box off, to have children. And that's where they meet. There's a lot of strong-willed women out there that need somebody that are a little lower than themselves. And that's where they meet. Ooh, I'm getting a look from Bruno and I love it.
No, I'm listening, and I'm actually loving this. This is actually being awesome, and we're only half of it. This is ridiculously good. Um, I'm just thinking, you know, I figure that like you were saying, like that a lot of women they need to obviously they're free to choose how they want to use their libido, right? And you said it very well. It's not just for your partner; it can be for yourself as well. If you want to put it externally, if you want to harness it internally and use it to manifest, we're always manifesting anyways. But if you want to manifest it faster, definitely use your libido, right? Uh, it's up to you to choose. But there's also something here that really, I think here is a sabotage. It's a self sabotage. And I figure that, it's not just women hesitating, it's women eventually stopping themselves. It's like, I want this man. Oh, he's so high value. Oh, he's so he's the right choice. Oh, but I want this dumb because this dumb one, I'm dumb too, so I can control him and I know how to deal with it. And that brings women pleasure because those dumb men who are
Yeah.
they are not only controllable, but they are predictable. Sorry, so they're controllable, but they're also predictable, right? And so, right, for a woman being with a predictable man is very good, but it's more in terms of like why does she want a predictable man? Like, did her father or her older brother or anybody had like very like sudden movements when she was a kid and that traumatized her? Like, was her father like super unpredictable, where he would say things he wouldn't do, and you would fully believe him, and he really looked like he was saying the truth, and then like boom, it wasn't, right? So women, when a lot of women when they choose, they're not really choosing, right? And if they are, then they're making the same choice, right? They are actively choosing the same the same people with different faces, with different bodies, with different hairstyles, with different eye colors, with different skin tones, right? The same
100%.
thing goes for men, but we're talking about women. So,
Yeah, no, like libido, like when you're talking about that, it's sometimes a relationship is so uncomfortable, but it is so known that it is the comfort. That's why we see people or women going, that the abusive type thing and a lot of women have had trauma and sexual trauma at that too. I think 1 in 5 women have had some sort of sexual trauma, which creates this environment where we do want to feel in control, where we do want to have that safety and security. And Irina knows as well how important it is for us, as she was saying, to know ourselves so that
Mhm.
we can expand. And that libido is one of the first thing that's going to go if you're in stress, because it's messing up your hormones, because your body is inflamed, because there's stress triggers that you don't even know are there. Like you said, Bruno, something happened in childhood. There was a way that you had to behave and how to believe in order to be safe. And for girls, especially, I don't even want to put an age on it, because everyone's life is so different. But for me, I grew up knowing that I needed to be some sort of CEO and powerful woman. I also needed to know how to cook and how to clean, and I also had to have a partner that was very, very successful. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody who's 12. Because not that I had to go out and get married then, but that's what was expected. And it does take time for women. And I know, Irina, I would love for you to talk on this, to develop your own set of rules.
Okay. So when it comes to me, you know what? I also think about libido, like when we have the kids, right? It also
Mhm.
goes down, right? Because it's also hormonal changes. And then you understand that there is another human being to attend to who requires more attention than the husband, right? Or the partner. So this is also, and it's not necessarily that it goes down when, we have the menopause or other things, but it could also go down during this stage as well, right? So
Mhm.
I think, and like you mentioned, like stress is very important, what you're going through, like what you have mentally in your head, right? For men and for women. And we already touched upon it, that for men, like financial stress is very, very, like uh, the most influential, right? For their libido. And for women, it's different things and different stages. Again, if they don't feel emotionally connected, for instance, when they're tired and their partner doesn't really help them to do the chores and other things, they're not going to be ready for, like bedtime, because by that time they're like completely exhausted and all they want just to be left alone and have their nap, right? Have the rest, because sleep is so important. So, like talking about libido, it also requires us to have the rest and also nutrition. Talk a little bit about nutrition and what kind of food influences our libido.
Well, I love talking about food because food is the medicine that we can use to heal our body. Yeah, and because we need dopamine, norepinephrine, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and of course serotonin, reducing our prolactin and our endocannabinoid system. All of those have to be operating really, really well. Now, when it comes like overall, you need to de-stress, you need to honor your nervous system. If you're in fight or flight, you will never get that desire, that libido that you want, because it's always crushing it. Stress will always crush that libido, because there's no need for fertility or reproduction if you're that stressed out. Your body will not let you have that. Then we need to have that adequate sleep, because we
Mhm.
need that energy. And of course, we need to have exercise, because that sort of burns the system and lets us all. There's something about exercise that helps all hormones balance themselves. So when we're talking about the excitatory ones, these are the ones that, yeah, I'm going to go have a little nap, wink, wink, right? So we find that we need a lot more of the amino acids. Those amino acids come from proteins. And then we can find that, let me just get that here. We need that vitamin D as well. And when we're talking about amino acids, for dopamine especially, we're talking about tyrosine, which is nuts, eggs, fish, chicken. And those are going to play a really good role in anything you do that's creative, also for your immune system, but also drive up that libido for you. It's not like you're going to have scrambled eggs in the morning and go like, I'm hot and heavy, let's do this now. But eventually you will get there. Norepinephrine here, we're talking about, these are all whole foods, right? Beans and legumes and cheese, and don't love dairy because it does interact with other things, but even a good chocolate here is awesome. We're also looking at the same amino acids, so get that protein. And L-carnitine, it actually comes in a beautiful supplement, excellent for getting our energy going if we're at the gym as well. And then some ginsengs as well, if we're talking about supplements. Now that's going to get you to the place. Now some people have too much norepinephrine and they feel high. They feel like they're buzzing. And if you're feeling like you're buzzing, you need to take that down a notch, because Libido doesn't, it likes that balance. Not too high, not too low. So we're talking, again, get that melatonin in. Melatonin is amazing. It's a beautiful antioxidant. And as we're sleeping, it really helps to refurbish our whole body. And there's this other trick, which looks kind of like an old tale, like an old wives' tale, but it's baking soda. Baking soda can
Mm.
your norepinephrine. So if you're too strung out and I don't mean strung out like you're high, but just with stress and everything going on, a little bit of baking soda in a glass of water, excellent. Just calms down that system just enough so that you can revive your libido. So many sex hormones, as we talked, are involved in our libido. Testosterone is a big one. I wouldn't do any sort of testosterone type of supplement unless you're in menopause. It doesn't really work when you're still cycling. But a really good way to boost your testosterone is fasting. And females have to do fasting in a specific way, or else they're increasing their cortisol, their norepinephrine, and they're shutting down the whole balance of their hormones. And that means that the fasting you're going to do is between 12 and 16 hours. You don't ever really want to feel hungry, lightheaded, or anything like that. And if you're one of these people that really can't fast, then you're going to add a fat. So you're going to, with your hot drink, you'll add a fat such as butter, MCT oil, and that can keep your body going because your body breaks down fat differently than it does carbohydrates or proteins. Estrogen isn't such a big deal unless it's low. And then we're talking about flax seeds, soy, blueberries, strawberries. I mean, it's a beautiful salad right there. Garlic is amazing because it's taking care of a lot of the inflammation in your peripheral tissues that is causing the inflammation, that is causing this low libido. A lot of people know that the seed cycling, very, very important to keep estrogen and progesterone in the right ratio. So seed cycling is the first half of your cycle. That is going to be flaxseed and pumpkin seed, about a tablespoon per day. And then in the second half of your cycle, that's going to be sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. And that produces more progesterone. Progesterone is huge when it comes to just healthy living. So aches and pains, headaches and stuff like that, you always want to know where your progesterone is. And that's not what the doctor is going to ask you. They're like, oh, you got a headache? Take a pain med. When that pain med is going to start to drop that libido as well. Because medications really interfere with our body's need and want to reproduce. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
it does make sense.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, do women have DHT?
Yes, we do.
Because I know for men, I believe that for men, DHT is like 400% more powerful than testosterone itself.
Yes. So we have our DHEA, and that's our battery. That's our hormonal battery. Now, what testosterone can do is it can split off and it can change into estrogen. Estrogen can change back into testosterone. It's depending on the stress levels in our body, where it goes. So if we don't have enough testosterone, we're going to look at where our estrogen is going. Is that being transferred into estrogen? Are we too high in estrogen? And when we see that kind of situation, we know that progesterone has been struggling for a very long time. DHEA will go down with age, and then that affects our testosterone levels. But it doesn't mean that we have to lose our libido ever, right? We can still have that. It might be not as strong as when you were 25, when you're 75, but you still have that ability if you're taking care of your body, if you're listening to what it's telling you. Because a lot of women, we just push through. Like, as I said before, they've got their career, they've got their friend group, which they need to stay involved in. They've got their family, their problems in all of these communities, they're dealing with their parents. They're dealing, you can tell how I feel. I love my parents. But there's issues that come up when you're in that sandwiched type place. You got your kids, you've got your parents, and you are strung pretty thin. And people are saying, well, how's your libido? And you're like, I don't even want to think about it because what? And that libido can calm you down because there's so many great biochemical reactions when we do have sex, like the endorphins that come from that serotonin that comes from that. Like, we feel really good. We need to, I want to tell every woman, we got to make sex a priority, and that libido has to be there 100%. But they get to choose it.
So I have another question. I have so many questions. Why? I kind of know why, but I still want to answer. I still want like a more like detailed answer from an actual professional, right?
Okay.
Not just somebody who made research on it like I did, right? So when it comes to the foods we eat, obviously our intestine is our second brain, right? It also thinks for itself, like almost every organ, anyways. And so number one, why does certain foods do increase the libido, right? So you were talking about the eggs. Look, like my breakfast is eggs with beans every single day. I scramble 3 eggs, right? I have a half a can of beans, right? And then I eat meat throughout the day, but I don't eat that much carbs,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So it's like.
So how's your libido then, Bruno?
It's like just off the roof. Like,
okay, you're doing the right thing. There is hyper and there is hypo, right? So you need there is a balance, and men's health is not exactly my forte. It's not what I'm an expert in. When we're talking about, go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, I know. But that question you already kind of had answered. Like, for example, why do certain foods make a woman's genital area smell better than others?
Ooh, I love that one. If so, as we go through our cycle, right, it's very moist. It should be. There are issues with pain and vulva pain, and there are even actually autoimmune conditions that affect our vulva and create a lot of pain down there. So it really is systematic, and whether or not it's foods or not, it's how the body is processing and detoxing. So if we're not getting the proper detox cleanse every single day, our body's going to build up a toxin load. One of the easiest places for it to release is through those mucal type cells that are down there. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, yes.
Yeah, so that's the smell thing. And when we're talking about certain foods have, and they've always have certain properties. So we're talking about broccoli, cauliflower, cruciferous type vegetables. That's going to clean out our liver. That's going to help with high estrogen. That's going to balance out our progesterone. That's going to, you're going to see a better balance there. Then we've got things like soy. Well, that can be estrogenic. So we're going to see more estrogens, good quality estrogens flowing through, replacing bad estrogens. So if we have that estrogens that are low, which is what's typical for that low type libido, unless it's stressed with high estrogen, then we're going to see an increase of that estrogen, that good estrogen, which is going to play nicely with our progesterone. When it comes to where like progesterone is more about taking care of the estrogen. So let me just get that. So progesterone, there are some supplements called Chase Tree. We want to be calming our system down because progesterone actually reacts within our nervous system as well. So we can, I don't want to say we lose progesterone or the ability to have good quality progesterone from our adrenals. What happens is it gets used for the stress response, the building blocks of that, and then we're just low. So the foods are so important. If you think about our bodies as a bucket of inflammation, nothing can work. Nothing can work. If you fill the bucket up, like I'm trying to make an analogy here, where you got all these beautiful, let's say like bubble tea. You guys know what bubble tea is?
Mhm.
Okay.
My daughter loves bubble tea.
Yeah.
I love
So you've got all these great bubbly things and stuff that they put in it, and you can suck it up through the straw, right? Well, what would happen if that liquid you put in there got thick and dirty with something like inflammation? You'd never be able to suck up those things. They'd never be able to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens with cholesterol, and that's why people have heart attacks, because it just grows so big, so big, so big, so big. It just completely, like stucks the artery.
It sucks the artery, and cholesterol is also part of making hormones. So if you're not getting the right messages from the brain to say we need this type of hormone made, but we're so stressed out, our body's going to push more cholesterol out. And cholesterol affects our energy. It affects our heart. It affects our circulation, which is, we still have to have that circulation in that area for us to be aroused, for it to not be painful.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as much circulation as a man might need for an erection, but we still need that.
Well, for example, like for a man, like fasting is like fasting for me. Fasting is like fasting for me is just absolutely one of the best things in the world,
Mm-hmm.
because once my cells, after like 10-13 hours, once my cells start regenerating super fast, and once, like, I mean, I barely have any fat in my body, right? But my body just heals so fast, so fast. And fasting for me is super important, and I like to fast like at least once a week, which is very important, because especially for me, I do martial arts. Like, I always have my hands, my bones are all swollen and everything, so I need to fast instead of like putting ice in whatever, because if I start eating other foods, it's going to swell up even more, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going
Well,
to get inflamed, because it's, yeah.
men don't have the cycle of hormones that we have. And that puts us at a very big disadvantage when it comes to fasting. Some women can, but you have to be ready for it. 12 hours, no more. Like, you start with 12 hours, because you start to feel hungry, your body's going to go into survival mode. And we're going to start storing fat. We start storing fat. We start storing extra estrogen. We're going to see more toxins in our body. Not cool. Then once you know that when our estrogen and our progesterone are doing what it does, and especially during perimenopause, we're going to have blood sugar dysregulation almost immediately. It's not our fault. It's the hormones. So taking care of that is so important for our libido as well, because we can be throwing off our blood sugar, which increases our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which increases inflammation. And we're just this hot mess. And we did nothing but, try to eat well and exercise. And it's our hormones that are affecting us. But when you're talking about that cold therapy, really good for balancing our hormones as well. With anything, take it easy. Like, jump in you don't have to do 2 to 3 minutes. You could do 2 to 3 seconds and then work up from there in a cold shower, a cold pool. If you're one of those people that wants to have that ice bath in your backyard, excellent. But things we need to calm our nervous system down. I love green tea for that, because it does have the flavonoids in it. But we don't get the buzz from it, and we can still feel alert. there's so many, like we need our good fats, we need our magnesium, we need our whole body working in order for libido to be our best friend, because that's what we
So
want.
what about like nuts?
Nuts are excellent. They're
Yeah.
excellent for the omega oils. You don't want to overeat them, and you definitely don't want to eat them if they've gone rancid. So if they smell like Play-Doh, don't eat them.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things that, like, it was a big trend. It was a really big trend, that sort of keto, eat all your nuts, have lots of good quality fats. We just have to be cautious about what we're putting in our body. Like, I love flaxseed oil, a lot of omega-3s. You want to see that in the first part of your cycle for your libido and for balancing your hormones. Then you got your omega-6s. As long as you haven't overdone it with any processed foods, your olive oils in the second half of your cycle to really help that progesterone. You'll know when you're there. You'll know when your libido is like, okay, I got it. I got it back. This feels good. Because you become confident in bed, you become confident in the mirror, even if you're not 20 pounds lighter. That libido does so much more for you than dropping a few pounds.
In your confidence and
Yeah.
in your health.
When you look at in your health, well, if your libido is going, you know your health is improving. You wouldn't, because it's the first thing to drop off when you're unhealthy. When you start to get your libido back, you know you're doing the right things. And in confidence, maybe I'm just speaking from my own experience, but when you've got a spouse that's doing something and you're doing something else, and there's no connection and there's no desire to connect, you're in a relationship and you're going like, what are we doing? What
Mhm.
are we doing? Like, you're busy doing this, I'm busy doing this. Yeah, it's almost like we're roommates. I don't love that. But when I know that I have my desire, and as Irina says, when you know yourself, that builds that confidence. You know that you can go in and say, I'd like to be intimate, or make those moves, and you're good with if they push you away. But you know
Mm-hmm.
you have that.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah, like,
Awesome. So I just love that powerful discussion. So, Jillian, let's just wrap it up. Like, can we give some tips to people, just, like, or tools that they can implement in order to increase their libido?
well, libido is so important, and as Bruno was saying, you really have to create that life. You got to know what you want. Whether you're in a relationship or not, just know how you want to feel in that kind of situation. Honestly, if it's been low, I would get it checked out. I'd get your hormones checked out. That's easy as a blood test, or you could do a Dutch test. There's a lot going on there. Start with taking out processed foods, and just start with your breakfast. Then move to your lunch, then move to your dinner. You do not need to do this all at once. Your body will not just flip a switch. It needs to work through all of the things. So you're going to really look for the root causes. If there's medications that are suppressing your desire, if there are chronic conditions, are you inflamed? And you work from those. So when we're talking about foods, relax, like, enjoy life,
Mm-hmm. I
eat
love it.
quality foods, and just, the omega oils, the magnesium, and the protein.
Mm,
Mhm.
awesome. Awesome. So thank you so much. And like always, thanks for all the tips. Thanks for all the wisdom you came to share with us, and for the audience to see and explore, to test what is your libido if you never even questioned that.
Oh,
Like, this is a good starting time to do that and change in your life in order to feel more passionate, in order to feel that desire and that drive, because we all can have it if we truly want it, and if we are ready to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
and have a great day, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you for having me.